And I brought down some opera singers, and we discussed opera. We've discussed the history of gentrification, art and gentrification. We had Gregory Enriquez, the architect on Woodward's, come down and give a talk on it, which was a very lively discussion. So we're looking at more and more integrating the community into SFU with their very strong support for doing that. They just hired a fabulous guy, Am Johal, to be their community liaison. He knows the downtown east side extremely well. Is very well respected by everyone. So that, and now there's a pub. There's a pub called the Charles Pub. And a dentist, who's a dentist, and a Subway.
Wonderful. I'm wondering, is there any grocery store at the Woodward's?
Nestor's grocery store, and it's actually called Woodward's Nestor's, and because there used to be a food floor, and that's one of the things that the community was really lacking and really wanted us to work on, and we're very happy when they came to the table with us.
Okay. Do you regularly visit people over there?
I live in Woodward's.
You live there?
And my office is in Woodward's.
And the people there in the street, do you visit them?
I see them all the time. I talk to them. I buy a lot of art from street artists, and I try to give them a very fair deal. My business card that I gave you was actually done by one of the Vancouver street artists, Ken Foster, who's very well known. And of course, I paid him for all his royalties for using his card and all of that. So, and I live there. I've lived there so long that I know virtually everyone.
And you have a good sense of it.
Well, I hope so.
Okay. I have a good question.
Okay.
And a little bit is a long question.
Okay.
There is a few questions in one. You worked for the Downtown East Side Resident Association with Libby Davis.
I did.
And Bruce Erickson.
Correct.
Building housing and helping people at the Downtown East Side. How it has changed, how you changed, and how the work changed.
Those are interesting questions, all right. Yes, I worked at DERA for many years. I'm very sorry for what condition that DERA ended up in the last few years, where basically the society has now been dissolved, and all their assets, all the buildings are now being run by other organizations. But before that, it was a really vibrant, wonderful organization to be involved in. We'd have events like where we invited all of the federal and provincial members of parliament and members of the legislature to come down and spend a month on welfare. And only one person did that, Emery Barnes. And he was an NDP MLA, a great man. He used to play for the BC Lions and before that for the Green Bay Packers. And he came down and lived on welfare, and we'd get 500 people out at a meeting when he would come at Carnegie. We'd have speakers out on the street and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, he died a few years ago, right? But we did a lot of stuff like that to really, organize the community, to get people excited we can change things. You know, the whole time that I was there, we never had a decrease in welfare. We had several times that they had tried it, but we were so well organized that they backed off every time. I think the housing that we created was really important to everyone, the jobs that we've created over the years from DERA. And I think that what's changed now is that there used to be a very strong unity among the organizations there. I don't see that as I did before. There are some that do work together well, but a lot of it is infighting and things like that. So that's really makes the neighborhood not as strong as it could be. And I'm hoping that that's going to change through time and get better. And there are some great organizations down there. Lookout has been there forever, and they have done such great work with people from the streets, mentally ill people, the Portland Hotel Society, Rain City Housing Society. All of those are great. Blade Runners program. So there is a great hope for the future, but of course we have a lot to overcome, and it's going to really take the unity of the neighborhood to make that happen.
Okay. Is there any individuals or organization that you would like to recognize them of their work?
Oh, absolutely. Well, certainly Karen O'Shaughnessy, who's the executive director of Lookout, has been there. She's the only person I know that's worked in the Downtown East Side longer than I have. I met her when I moved there in '71. Gary Jobin, who runs the Blade Runner program, fabulous. Ken Leotier. Ken Leotier is a true working class hero. He started an organization called United We Can. And United We Can is basically a place for dumpster divers to bring in their bottles and cans to get their deposit back. Millions of dollars a year come into that community through dumpster divers, right? Natural scavengers. It's so good for the environment. It keeps it redirects from the landfill tens of millions of containers a year. So this guy, who was a homeless guy with every kind of issue you can imagine, once he got housed in the Four Sisters Co-op and had permanent housing, he just blossomed. So that was, I guess that's back in like 92 or 3. And it's just he's a fabulous example of what kind of people that we all should be. And there's tons and tons of other people that do all kind of good work. Many of them, I don't know their names. The street nurses are fabulous people. The Portland Hotel does a very good job. My daughter works there. She lived in the downtown east side since she was 2.5. So, you know, it's a magnificent community with a lot of really dedicated and talented people, but lots of problems to overcome.
As we see right now, and you mentioned, things are not going well.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's not that they're not going well. You know, one thing that the province, and I'm not a member of the Liberal Party by any means, but they have done a great job. They've purchased 22 of the hotels in the neighborhood, right? They're building other units. The Portland Hotel has one coming up. The Lux Theater just got redone. So there is a lot of good things that are happening. Of course, what we see are really bad things. We don't really notice as often the really great things. And Judy Graves, that works for the city, she's always out in the lanes everywhere at night, you know, really making sure that people are okay. So I think it's doing better every day. It's what do you call it? 2 steps forward and 1 step back, right? It's not they're not simple problems, and there's not all the tools that we need, but I do think it's getting better.
People believe that you are a role model in the community. And therefore, I have a question, a special question for you.
Okay.
So what do you see that how it can be fixed? Because those things that we are seeing as a bad thing, and that is at the surface, and it covers the good thing. We get unable to see the good thing. So just we see the cover.
Right. Okay.
So how it is possible to end the poverty and to fix with respect and understanding of those people that they are poor, mentally ill, addicted, or prostitution, or whatever is going on?
Well, you know, we also, first of all, I think we have to look at people and say, yes, here's a person with their problems, right? Like, when I listen to Billie Holiday sing, I don't think, oh, I'm listening to a junkie. I mean, she was a heroin addict, right? And people can have those kind of problems and still be brilliant people and fine people, you know, can really, really contribute to our society. You know, Dean Wilson is another guy who was in the movie Fix that really changed the way that we look at drugs. He comes to our classes, our opera classes and all. A fabulous guy, and really set up an organization called VANDU, Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, so that they had a voice. So I think that we really need, and there's a woman that I met in Catalonia, Spain, who was the Secretary of the Interior, and we had a talk, and she told me, our future, and for us to really go forward, depends on tenderness. And I think that's utterly true. We have to think of people in a very humane way. We have to think about them as a whole person. And I think that's the key. And we work together and we bury our differences and we go forward. But one thing about seeing the bad things, I was so glad. I was on a group called Impact of Olympics on the Communities Coalition with several downtown Eastsiders, Ken Leotie, Am Joe Hall, Linda Mix, and we really worked hard to make sure that nobody was pushed out during the Olympics, that when the cavalcade went to go out to the P&E or whatever, went right down Hastings, nothing was blocked out. People all over the world could see the issues that we have. And that's a challenge to us that the people of the world know. And if we are not doing the proper job, they will know. So I think that that kind of pressure is very good on governments. They really have to come. And it's, for governments too, once they realize the amount of money they can save by acting in a humane way, it costs us $40,000 to $60,000 a year for each person that's living on the streets. So why don't we say, well, let's spend 50 and house that guy, right? And get him the problems that he needs, and then we won't have to worry about spending all that money, right? For paying for the police, the mental health workers, emergency rooms, ambulances, all of that goes on every night. We don't need to do that. We can do a better job.
I have a good question.
Okay.
I heard a lot that people live in the street in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
That's their choice. They choose that kind of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, if there are people like that, I've never met them. I can't see somebody thinking, well, let me see now. I think I'll buy a condo in Whistler. No, I think I'd rather live on the streets. It's not those. That's not the way it happens. It's the fact that they haven't been treated with tenderness. It's the fact that they've been treated badly. It's the fact that they may have been sexually abused as a young woman or a young man. We don't know. And we can see a big strapping guy and say, why is this guy on the street? I mean, he could do, but we don't know him. We just see the surface, right? And I don't think that anyone chooses. I think society has chosen that people will not have choices, and that's why they end up living on the street.
What inspired you to do this much work in downtown?
Well, I think one of the things I said earlier that's really key to that, to answering that question is I like it there. I like the people. I'm drawn to it. I could have moved out at any time, right? But I didn't want to. I raised my kids there. You know, it's my community. And I mean, I could have lived there as a longshoreman too, right? But
yes.
The reason that I went into the work I did was that, first of all, it became available, and I had a history of that. I worked with, in Colorado, I worked with Mexican-American migrant workers, which was unbelievable conditions. Before that, in the southern states, I got involved in getting rights for black people to vote, and you know, I came from a family that wasn't a very good family, very violent, very ignorant, and those things all inspired me to try to make the world a better place, right? And I enjoy doing that. So I'm selfish when I do these things.
That's a kind of great, being selfish that way.
I really enjoy it myself, I have to say.
We don't have much time to the end of the program. If you can quickly, this is a big question, but
Okay.
quickly give me a response, I would appreciate for that. How it is possible to end this poverty? And how many organizations they have to get together, fix it, finish it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't even know how many organizations there are in the downtown east side, probably 150, something like that. Many of them do excellent work. Some don't do as good, you know, and I'm not a judge of who that would be. But, you know, it does, as I said earlier, it takes a united front. It takes governments to sit down and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? This didn't happen. And when I teach at UBC, I tell my students, there's nothing that happens without it being a political policy that some government put in place. Why are there no housing units for people? Because the government decided to get rid of the best housing program maybe in the world that Canada had up until the 80s, and then it started trimming back, and now it's zero. The federal government's contribution is zero. The province has kind of learned recently that they have to deal with housing issues. But if we could have the three levels of government actually sit down and forget all their differences and say, let's fix this issue, and have the proper people as consultants and the proper community organizations, we could really wrap this up in a very short time. Now, the odds of that happening are slim and none, unfortunately. But as Canadians, we pride ourselves on welcoming, caring, that we're not belligerent toward other countries or people. And that's the kind of attitude. It's a Canadian attitude that will fix these issues.
Thank you so much for your information, and probably if I can have that privilege to thank you for all work you have been done at the Vancouver Downtown East Side. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and
today.
thank you for being so nice.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
And thank you for watching.